A reader left a message in the background. I am in a bad mood recently, and Mr. Shisai recommended a poem, which made me happy instantly. Without hesitation, Mr. Poetry released a song Dianzhong Lip's Skip the Swing by Li Qingzhao. Skip the swing, get up lazy and slender hands. The dew is thick and the flowers are thin, and the sweat is light and the clothes are transparent. Seeing guests come in, the socks are knocked out and the gold hairpin slips away. He walked away in shame, leaned on the door and looked back, but sniffed the green plum. This is a magical word. Every time Mr. Shisai reads this word, he will laugh unconsciously. The whole word is only 41 characters, which makes people blush. Do you know? This provocative poem was written by Li Qingzhao, who plagiarized Tang Dynasty poets. Unfortunately, the original work is unknown, but Li Qingzhao's imitation has been passed down through the ages, which is also a great spectacle. Red lips. Skip the swing, get up lazy and slender hands. The dew is thick and the flowers are thin, and the sweat is light and the clothes are transparent. Seeing guests come in, the socks are knocked out and the gold hairpin slips away. He walked away in shame, leaned on the door and looked back, but sniffed the green plum. Some people say that this is the first meeting between Li Qingzhao and Zhao Mingchen. In spring, Li Qingzhao was swinging in the garden, tired and stood up. His hands were sore, but he didn't bother to move, and the fragrant sweat leaked from his dress. After swinging on the swing for a long time, she was a little tired, and she was ready to take a good rest. Suddenly, a guest came in, and Li Qingzhao was so frightened that he ran away quickly. The teachings of my parents are still in my ears. Girls are not allowed to see outsiders. During this run, he didn't care about putting on his shoes, and walked away with only his socks on. In such a hurry, the gold hairpin stuck obliquely on his head also slipped off. When he walked to the door, he could get rid of this predicament immediately, but Li Qingzhao stopped again. She was really curious. Who was the visitor? What does it look like? It was impolite to look back at each other rashly. Li Qingzhao lowered his head and sniffed the green plum under the flash of lightning. Is she really sniffing green gage? No, she was peeking at the guests by sniffing the green plums. But sniffing green plums is really vivid. Think about that scene. The woman lowered her head and smelled the fragrance of green plums. Her eyes rolled, but she glanced at the guests at the side, not daring to look too clearly, but couldn't help her eyes turning. She really blushed. Li Qingzhao's dexterous pen and ink portray the psychology of wanting to see but not seeing, wanting to see but not seeing. The mentality of I want to see but I can't, I want to see but I don't dare to see is very similar to a child in first love. But, you know what? This poem was written by Li Qingzhao by plagiarizing the poem occasionally seen by Han Xie, a poet of the Tang Dynasty. Occasionally. Don Henderson. The swing beat the troubled Luo Kun, and gave advice. See the guests come in and leave with a smile, and rub the plums with hands to reflect the door. Entitled Occasionally, this is a chance encounter. The woman was a little sleepy playing on the swing, so she untied her skirt and drank a glass of milk. Seeing the guest coming in, he smiled and walked away. He wanted to see the guest again, so he stood at the middle door with a plum in his hand. This is a 7-character quatrain, neat and neat, with 28 characters. But when I read it, it is far less interesting than Li Qingzhao's Dianzhong Lip Cuba swing. The same is meeting guests and coming in. Han Xie briefly described this incident, but Li Qingzhao described this incident as a story of ups and downs. There are 3-character sentences, 4-character sentences, and 5-character sentences in the words, which make the whole story full of drama. In terms of plot, Li Qingzhao's words are also more tortuous. Swinging on a swing, the guest suddenly comes, the woman starts up, the woman runs, the gold hairpin falls, is about to escape but stops, pretends to sniff green plums, peek at the man. In just 41 words, it tells an interesting and tortuous story. The girl's shyness is like a drooping lotus flower after the rain. When the 4 eyes meet, the shy bow of the head is worth 1,000 words. Eileen Chang said, among thousands of people, if you meet the person you want to meet, during thousands of years, in the boundless wilderness of time, if you happen to catch up, there is no other way, there is nothing to say, only a soft question, oh, are you here too? The most beautiful thing is the first meeting, and the luckiest thing is the flowers that get married after the first meeting. Li Qingzhao was lucky, she and Zhao Mingchen were in harmony, they were an enviable couple. Such a story is recorded in the story of Lang Huan in the Yuan dynasty. When Zhao Mingchen was young, his father tried to find a wife for him. When Zhao Mingchen was sleeping during the day, he had a dream. In the dream, he memorized a passage from a book. When he woke up, he only remembered 3 sentences, words and words fit together. After waking up, Zhao Mingchen told his father about the dream. His father explained to him, "You are afraid that you want a daughter-in-law who can write lyrics." Speaking and Sihi is the word ci, and Changjichuo is the word female, and Sifukaba is the word husband. Doesn't it mean that you are the husband of the woman of ci? Later, Zhao Mingchen and Li Qingzhao got married, and Li Qingzhao was a well-known poet with good writing, which confirmed what was said in the dream. It is unknown whether the story is true or not, but the love between Li Qingzhao and Zhao Mingchen is a fact. Both of them love Jinji literature, and the happiest thing is to go to Daxiakyo temple to treasure together, and if they find a desirable item, they will be very happy. The most famous story is gambling on books and pouring tea. There are piles of books at home, and Li Qingzhao has a super good memory. After the two of them finished making tea, they pointed to which book, which page, and which line of a story was recorded in the pile of books. Those who answered correctly drank tea. Li Qingzhao won every time, but when he won, he laughed and spilled the tea in his hand, so he had no choice but to drink. From an ignorant girl chasing love to a young woman who gambles with books and throws tea, Li Qingzhao's encounter has a happy ending, which is really lucky. Love is the most beautiful encounter in life. People who are destined will meet again. There is no invitation, no oath, just walking towards you on the moonlight and fragrance. Maybe all encounters in this life are reunions after a long absence in previous lives? Every time I recite this song Dianzhong Lips, I am looking forward to a beautiful encounter and even a happy ending. May all encounters in the world be like Li Qingzhao, with happy endings. Share with you. Our nation has several important characteristics, and being good at learning and summarizing is one of them. In the long history of China for thousands of years, our ancestors often summed up their life experience and social life in the end with a few words or a catchy sentence, which was passed down from generation to generation, and finally it has become a proverb in our mouths. To a certain extent, these common sayings and proverbs represent the social experience and life wisdom of the ancestors, so even if some of them are viewed in today's society, they still have a certain reference value, and they can even give pointers and wake people up. For example, it doesn't matter whether a cat is white or black, as long as it catches mice, it is a good cat means to proceed from reality. I picked up the sesame seeds and lost the watermelon is a metaphor for disregarding the primary and secondary, catching the secondary things and giving up the main thing. But there are also some old sayings, with the development of the times, gradually deviated from their original meaning, such as the saying an old cow eats young grass that we are going to talk about today. When it comes to an old cow eats tender grass, everyone will definitely smile knowingly. Doesn't this idiom mean that some older people find a partner who is much younger than themselves? It is a very common idiom. But do you know? The original meaning of this proverb is not so, and this familiar saying has the next sentence eat chicken as soon as possible, which is also a summary of the life experience of the ancients. Let's first talk about the last sentence old cows eat tender grass. This actually originally came from the true nature of cows. Ancient China has always been dominated by agriculture, so cow, as a large mammal, was a very important means of farming and transportation at the time, and an inseparable part of farming civilization. The management of farming cattle in all dynasties has been very strict. In the Western Zhou dynasty, there was a criminal law that the princes should not kill cattle without reason. In order to prohibit the random killing of cattle, the government of the dynasty even came up with the law of repaying the life of a cow with human life, which shows how high the status of cattle was in ancient times. Cows are also herbivores. If they want to eat enough to work well, they can only let them go to the grass to have a full meal, or cut the grass and come back to feed them. The status of cattle is so high, the ancients naturally paid great attention to the feeding of cattle. For those old cattle who are old, have bad teeth, and poor digestion ability in the stomach, they can only eat more fragrant and tender cattle. Grass, which makes it easier to digest, so that it can maintain physical strength to work, so there is a saying old cows eat tender grass, which is actually a summary of the life experience of the ancients. It's just that with the development of scientific and technological productivity, cattle have become less delicate. This common saying has gradually become less relevant to people's lives, but because it has been given a new meaning, it has become a more commonly spoken word, used as a metaphor for some. There is a certain irony in older people finding partners of the opposite sex who are much younger than them. Next, let's take a look at the next sentence of Old Cow Eats Tender Grass, eat chicken as early as possible. Chicken is one of the important poultry. Compared with the precious cattle that dare not kill without permission, chicken can be regarded as the meat that can be seen on the table of ordinary people, not to mention that chickens can lay eggs. Such nutritious and economical poultry were basically used in ancient times. Every household will raise livestock. However, the rural economy in the past was not as developed as it is now, and the lives of ordinary people were not rich, and they would not easily eat chicken. Because chickens have the practical value of laying eggs and crowing, chickens are also part of the family property for ordinary people, and ordinary people cherish this kind of poultry very much. The hens are kept for laying eggs, the roosters are kept for crowing or to worship ancestors during festivals, and the rest will be raised and sold in the market for money. Even if they want to kill chickens to eat meat, they usually kill the old chickens that have been raised for a long time and laid a lot of eggs, preferably the chicks that hatched. However, this kind of old chicken will not taste so delicious. Not only the meat is old and not chewy, but it is more than a little worse than the new chicken. That's why the ancients had the saying you should eat chicken as early as possible, which also reflects a common sense of life of ordinary people in ancient times. It is used to explain that chickens should be killed early, so that the chicken is tender and delicious, otherwise it will not taste good when it is old. Later, the phrase eat chicken as soon as possible was also given a new meaning, which is similar to the meaning of flowers blooming can be folded. It warns people that everything should be done as early as possible, and when you want to do it, you must do it quickly, otherwise it will be too late to wait until it is too late, and it will be too late to regret. These sayings of the ancestors are a high-level summary of the life experience of raising livestock, which also contains a lot of life principles, which is the embodiment of the profound wisdom of the ancestors.